If you clicked on this video, you're likely familiar with the former group of gaming YouTubers known as TheCreatures. But for those of you who aren't, here's a quick rundown. Formed in 2009, TheCreatures were first and foremost a group of friends that met online and played a variety of games together right around the time where gaming videos began their slow transition from being known and recorded as simply Let's Plays into just gaming videos forced to place emphasis on clickbaity thumbnails and video titles. TheCreatures as a whole are largely remembered for these videos as well as some live-action comedic skits and vlogs, but most of them got their internet start in and met each other through machinimas, mini-series that were filmed entirely in and using video games as their medium, such as the famous Red vs. Blue. Often lore-driven, these machinimas became centered around their cast of characters rather than gameplay events, and ended up naturally forming a community of machinima creators, including noteworthy creatures Kutra, Gassy, and Dan. As each machinima required their own cast of uniquely voiced creatures, it became the norm to see machinimas created by any of these guys to prominently feature other creatures as voice talents, such as Gassy appearing in Kutra's Craft Spice video, and as such, naturally led to them building rapport and friendships with one another. As the love for and viability of creating machinimas waned for various reasons that could fill their own video, each creature began shifting focus to simple gameplay videos. Solo playthroughs like Kutra's Far Cry 3 series followed a very Let's Play style flow. They were products of their time, after all, but there was no shortage of collaborative playthroughs amongst this group, mostly revolving around Minecraft, such as the Excommunicated series and the Creatures' magnum opus, Treetopia. I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling that these collections of videos really stand out in the bog of 2010's gaming YouTube, and I think a lot of that has to do with these guys' machinima background. Whether it was because they found themselves subconsciously reverting to their old ways, or because they simply made an effort to, these series often played out like off-the-cuff real-time machinima, as though each member was piloting an in-game caricature of themselves, all with the mutual goal of creating content in mind. Rivalries were artificially heightened, exchanged favors were embellished into full-on wartime alliances. These Minecrafters weren't just conversing idly podcast style and exaggerating the occasional reaction to a surprise creeper, they were making stories. Whether or not these stand the test of time is a topic you can go crazy about in the comments if you want, but ultimately it's a large part of why this group was different, and why they're so fondly remembered by fans to this day. When these guys sat down and loaded into a Minecraft server together, it meant mining for comedy gold. Naturally, the guys enjoyed exploring new forms of content with each other and diversified their portfolio, creating the aforementioned skits and continuing their ongoing podcast, Creature Talk. They even made plans to move out into a house together to continue their mutual online livelihoods. Several move-ins, move-outs, and conversations about living situations later, the group finds themselves in an honest office space, aptly named the Creature Office, complete with communal break room and even rooms dedicated as sets entirely to certain series like Creature Talk and Sarcasm with Seamus, while also allowing every member their own office to produce content for their individual YouTube channels. But over the course of all this, the group changed significantly. Founding members Chilled and Junkyard left before serious talks about a creature house ever took place, and Gassy was asked to leave before the lease of the first creature house had ended due to personal problems with Kutra and Dan, a subject of much speculation amongst the fanbase both at the time and when the group fully disbanded. Over the course of the creatures operating out of the office, additions to the group were made in the form of Immortal HD, a fan favorite owing to his great natural chemistry with James, Spencer, Dex, Kevin, Intern Joe and Artist Joe, Stephanie, Aaron, and Alex. The title of Creature at this time was somewhat gatekept by the community and was really only granted to members who served primarily as on-screen talent, and of these, only Immortal, Dex, and Kevin were quickly referred to as such. Spencer, Stephanie, Aaron, Alex, and the Joes were more so received by the fanbase to be working for the creatures rather than full-fledged creatures themselves. Over the years, Sly, Kevin, Seamus, and Dex all announced their departure from the group, and their overall online presence waned. As time goes on and more members leave, it becomes increasingly speculated and apparent that members are being driven out by the way the group is being run and operated. The last week of April 2016 would spell what hundreds of thousands of subscribers would see as the definitive end of the Creature Hub, the group's main channel, unsubscribing in a mass exodus as on the 28th, intern Joe, Aaron, Alex, and founding member James announced their departure with fellow founders Z and Spoon following suit. A move that had been a long time coming, as by this point, many fans considered those two creatures in name only due to their distance from the group both geographically and online. James and Alex, who were seen by many as the last reasons to stay subscribed to and watch the Creatures Hub content, took Joe and Aaron and a few other friends and moved elsewhere in Colorado before later basing up in LA to form Cow Chop, the proverbial ship that many ex-Creatures Hub subscribers would jump to in mid-2016. A few more crew departures later, the Creatures Hub officially comes to an end in the July of the following year, with Kutra and Dan posting a send-off video to announce this to the fans. Which brings us to today. Or more specifically, April 24th, 2022, where intern Joe posts this tweet, which sparked the question I am putting forth in this video: what would happen if the creatures got back together? Now, I should clarify that I mean for the purpose of creating a single reunion video, and not as a group entirely. The realistic answer is more or less out there already, as Dan and some of the guys have already reunited for a mini video series in June of 2020, but this answer is unsatisfying, as the series was short and only started with him, Spoon, Z, and Gassy, less than half of the original 10, and the two members thereof that had what most would concur to be the least influence and involvement in both the decisions and content made by the Creatures Hub during the group's glory days. Now, before this series concluded, Sly, Junk, and Chilled also made appearances, but the series never featured more than 5 members concurrently. The group do in fact talk about their experiences in their time as the Creatures, but only for a fraction of the time that they're all sat down for. In these videos, the Creatures didn't come back as the Creatures, they came back as friends who just so happened to share history in the group's lifespan. So what if the world were a game of The Sims piloted by a rabid Creatures fan? What if the poor tortured souls, every single one of them, were shoved back into a box and forced to make content again? First, we must ask ourselves where to draw the line on who's invited to this theoretical reunion. No one debate that all of the original 10 members are involved, but after that it gets a little muddy. If we go ahead and expand the table to include everyone that has ever been officially announced as a creature at one point in time, you get plenty of widely agreed upon creatures like Kevin and Alex, but you also get those who just happened to be in the office toward the end of the group's lifespan when Kutra announced in a Reddit post that everyone in the office at that time would be granted creature status, a move that felt hollow to any longtime fans still around at that point, as, like I said before, the term had come to be gatekept due to the group's prior reluctance to grant the title to new coming members. Furthermore, where do we stop when it comes to people who were regular content collaborators with the Creatures but never interested in becoming a creature, or at least were never referred to as such, like Peabat, Lyle, and Eads? So even in playing God here, there are still physical limitations to this hypothetical reunion video. Presumably, it would be a Creature Talk style podcast with all participants sitting around a table and respectfully letting one person talk at a time. Most mic mixers like these, which you would need for a podcast setting, handle up to 16 channels, aka 16 mics. So for this theoretical reunion, I propose we limit it to 16 people. It's possible to splash the cash to get one with up to 32 channels, but there's no chance that anyone just happens to have one of those laying around, and with that many people you're going to need an unreasonably sized room and table for everyone to sit out as well. So with this arbitrary limitation presented to our aforementioned rabid Sims player complete with brand new Creatures expansion, which 16 people do they make return to the office for one last Creature Talk? As I said earlier, it's hard to imagine such a project without the original 10, Kutra, Dans, Junk, Chilled, Gassy, Z, Spoon, Nova, Seamus, and Sly, but let's take a brief pause from our speculation here. It can be said that there's 2 possible goals that can be explored with this regrouping scenario. One being the making of a video a la the original Creature Talks, where the group simply talks about current events and anything else that happens to come to mind for the sake of making an easy listening video enjoyable by any viewer that's tuned in. The other being a cards on the table retelling of everyone's perspective regarding the decline and disbandment of the group. With only 6 additional slots to the original 10, it would be hard to achieve both goals at once, so here's where we have to split our focus. For the first case, one would think to supplement the 6 members that most predominantly featured as on-screen talent during their time at TheCreatures rather than office, camera, or editing work, meaning Alex, Kevin, Dex, and possibly even some of the folks that made multiple guest appearances back in the old Creature Talk days and are more used to making content online, like P-Bat, Lyle, and Deeds. These 16 sit down, shoot the shit for 2 hours, and come out with a half-decent podcast marketed on its sheer number of participants and their shared history, pull in 1 or 2 million views, and then the Creature name is laid to rest. Except it doesn't, because the other goal is way spicier. The other goal in mind would involve deliberately picking the members most central to the quote-unquote drama that Creature fans so fervently frothed about in the group's last couple of years. This points toward the Creature office, the living monument to what many ex-members hinted toward being their reason for leaving, the group being run like a business. So along with the established 10, this fan would likely select Alex, Dex, Stephanie, Aaron, and intern Joe, who jumped into the Cow Chop ship as James and Alex left, and just about anyone else who's put out a video explaining why they left. You could argue that, in this regard, there are actually people involved with the group that are more deserving of a spot at the table than some of the original 10, such as Z or Spoon, who, as stated previously, maintained a distance from the group despite being full-fledged members. But, let's be honest. The perfect answer to this hypothetical is simply put all 20-odd people involved together, let them laugh, and be merry about a bunch of water under the bridge. In the wake left by the Creatures, Kutra is made out by most to be the villain of the situation, and Dan the anti-hero, who acted unjust for the sake of the group but was left with nothing but ashes. At the end of the day, the Creatures don't have to get back together because The Creatures, a collaborative channel on YouTube, is finished. Whenever members left, they did so without making a big stink, because no one directly involved with The Creatures was interested in causing drama. So by the same token, no one would be interested in participating in this hypothetical. It's better for everyone involved to acknowledge it as done and move on. This project has been nothing more than a silly little side hobby that I worked on in honor of the many YouTubers that I grew up watching that I discovered through the collaboration known as The Creatures. And researching this video brought me to heights of nostalgia I had never been to before. Series like the group's Go at a Terraria series yanked me right back to happy bygone days of being a carefree 12-year-old, interested in nothing more than watching a group of terminally online 20-somethings play a funky 2D Minecraft. So I want to close out this video by saying simply thank you. Thank you to all who watched this far, and more importantly, thank you to everyone who made The Creatures happen. You guys gave me endless entertainment and inspiration throughout my adolescence, and now I'm hoping to repay some of that in the making of this video, and hopefully more to follow. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.